Hello, everyone. I'd like to ask you some questions you're probably asking yourself. Do you need to sell more? Do you need to sell something? Do you need help? Well, congratulations. Listening is the first step towards learning, and your attendance today at this summit and my segment of it proves you are serious about your business and will work hard for its success. My name is Dan Ketchen, and I founded Technology Associates and Products, TAP, to apply my experience in customer-focused consultative sales and sales enablement to companies in need of a little help, or a lot of help. I've spent more than 20 years serving companies and their customers, matching needs with solutions. My suggestions today are based on my experience, which is primarily in selling technology in business to business and business to government relationships. That said, the principles I will be discussing cross many domains, and I believe you will hear some things that ring true to you and your business. At TAP, we have a special passion for working with small businesses and startups, enabling them to focus on developing their technologies, products, and services instead of consuming resources on sales and marketing. I am thrilled at the opportunity to share our experience with you in the hopes it will help you become more successful. We truly believe that a rising tide lifts all boats and a thriving economy helps us all. Let's make you a part of that, shall we? Before we get into the meat of it, let's have a quick review on something. If there was a single book or technique or methodology that would guarantee sales success, that would be, if not the single most successful selling book of all time, it would be tied for first. The reality is, there is no one size that fits all when it comes to sales. Things that you try are going to work sometimes, they're not going to work other times. The key is to constantly iterate, try new things, build on the things that are successful, and get rid of the things that aren't. So, as a disclaimer, the tools, techniques, tips, best practices, and opinions expressed herein do not guarantee success. There is no express or implied warranty. The content in this presentation is a set of suggestions that have worked for others and may work for you. I certainly hope so. Tip number one, know your market inside and out. This is listed first because it is absolutely the most important of all the tips. You probably started a company in an industry that you know very well. You're leveraging that expertise you've developed over could be years, could be decades, could be a few short weeks if you're a truly assertive entrepreneur. Nonetheless, you started the company because you know your business. You know what it takes to be successful. But critically, you have to understand that market, not just at a broad level, but at a very detailed level. You need to be able to determine which portions of the market are you best matched for. What niche markets within a broader market are you best matched for? Are your products specifically targeting segments of your market that you know so well? Or are you trying to do too much for too many people? It all depends on what your products and services are. You have to match them to your market. You have to know the key players in that market, be they companies, be they individual leaders within the market, thought leaders within the market. You need to understand what products compete with you in that market and how your products are better. Apply the very famous Porter's Five Forces. You can look that up if you're not familiar with it to determine your market and how your products fit in it. But again, the key here in tip number one is to know your market inside and out. Tip number two, the SBA is your best friend. Did you know that the Small Business Administration exists to help companies like yours become successful? Created in 1953, the SBA helps small business owners and entrepreneurs pursue the American dream. Did you know it's the only cabinet-level federal agency fully dedicated to small business, and it provides counseling, capital, contracting expertise as a go-to resource and voice for small businesses? If you don't, you need to go, as soon as this is over, to www.sba.gov and see the treasure trove of materials and resources available to you through the SBA. A significant portion of their support is done through your local Small Business Development Center. For example, in Orlando, where I'm located, we have SBDC, Small Business Development Center, Orlando.com. And there you can find information on counseling that they provide, one-on-one free counseling to help you become more successful. They have services, they do workshops and seminars, they have offices, they have network connections. The thing that I really like about the SBDC, and it's one of the first people I visited when I started my business, was that they will do research for you. They have access to all the competitive intelligence databases out there, like Bloomberg, and all these other databases, and you tell them what you want to know to help you identify and segment your market, like we just talked about in tip 1, and they can get you information that it would take you days, weeks, or months to cobble together yourself. And you can get it from them, and you can get it for free. So I am begging you, if you haven't done so, you've got to go to sba.gov and see what resources are available to you absolutely free. Because tip number 2, the SBA is your best friend. Tip number 3, there are many free resources out there. We are blessed to live in an age of information and access and entrepreneurship. And pretty much anything you want to find out at a basic level is out there on the internet, absolutely free. Just pull up your favorite search engine, type in what you want to find, and you most likely, in the first page or two, will find access to a free white paper, PowerPoint presentation, recorded webinar, podcast, lots of podcasts out there to teach you how to do things. For example, I happen to know for a fact that if you want to learn how to do cold calling, there are resources out there which you can sign up for and participate in a live webinar on how to do cold calling. And you'll get guidance on how to structure your script, what to expect in terms of response, how to deal with difficult people when you get a hold of them, all of those things. Now, logically, what is the point of giving this stuff away for free for the point of the provider? It's because they want you to sign up for a consulting practice or buy their book or buy their program or sign up for their website. And that may be something that's very helpful for you. That's a business decision you have to make. But to learn the basics on just about any aspect of selling, or really any aspect of your business in general, there are free resources out there that are just a click away if you know how to find them. To shortcut that a little bit for you, I want to tell you that you need to check out your local library, county library, municipal library. More than likely, they have resources available to you if you are a constituent of that county, a resident of that county, a resident of that municipality, and you have access to resources they can provide you, again, for little or no charge. So I encourage you, do a little research, call your library, use the Googles, and find out that there are many free resources out there. Tip number 4, assign responsibility. This is a little reality check for you. It's real tempting to just run your business, do the things you enjoy, and get to sales when it's convenient. Unfortunately, that is not a recipe for success. Someone in your organization needs to be responsible for the nuts and bolts of sales and marketing. Maybe that's you, but maybe not. It might be your business partner. It might be your spouse. It might be your first hire. It might be a consultant. But somebody has to put together a documented sales plan, and that person's job needs to depend on the success of it. Not necessarily sales that are a result from that plan, though that would certainly be nice, but to have a documented plan that is updated in response to inputs and outputs for the business, response you get from your prospects, from your leads, and to constantly update that plan so that anytime, for example, like when you go to borrow money or talk to an angel investor, that you can show them that you understand what it takes to sell your product, whether or not you've actually been successful in selling it. Having that plan is critical, and having someone responsible for that plan is equally critical. What should go in that plan? Things like branding and how you're going to get your brand message out. What is your value proposition? Does that make sense? Can you explain it? What have you done to productize your offerings based on your understanding of the market that you're in? And what is your go-to market strategy for that? And also, and this is often overlooked, what is your budget? Are you deciding whether to participate in some sort of sales opportunity or marketing opportunity one at a time as they come up? Or have you apportioned a piece of your annual budget, monthly budget, however you do your budget, dedicated to improving your go-to-market strategy and what you're doing to sell your product? Maybe that's bringing on interns to pound the phones on a cold calling program. Maybe that's advertising in the local business journal. Whatever it is that's right for you, you need to have budgeted money so that you can pursue those things and not be deciding every time, do I have the money this month to put an ad in the paper? That is not the way to be successful. You've got to have a plan, and somebody's got to be responsible for that plan. Tip number 4, assign responsibility. Tip number 5, everybody sells. In some industries, this is well known already. For example, if you have an air conditioning repair company, you know that your best salespeople are the technicians that go out on repair calls to sell new systems, to sell service plans, to sell all kinds of things to the customers they deal with. If you're a professional company providing some sort of on-call support, and you're going out to customers, whether it's to fix copiers or to do IT work or whatever, again, those field maintenance people are very often generating the majority of your leads, and that's fine. By the way, you really need to compensate them for that because they are bringing value to your business that you wouldn't have otherwise. Now, for everybody else, you may or may not have dedicated salespeople, but consider this. Most employees, regardless of what their job actually is, spend some amount of time during their workday talking with others outside the business. It may be suppliers, it may be people that they're calling to do collections on. That's always a good situation that you have receivables to be collecting. They may be talking with people who are setting up trade shows or whatever they're doing. They are talking with others outside the company. So they need to understand the company's value proposition, the products and services that it sells, the market segment that they're going after. Because every single person they talk to is touching your company through them. So they need to understand that they are part of the sales process. They don't have to be salespeople. They don't have to make offers. They don't have to quote prices, but they do have to represent the company in a professional manner and make sure that as they go about their business and they're asked about the company, that they can answer those questions in an attractive manner that's going to leave a positive impression and hopefully lead to that person becoming a prospect. Plus, even if their contact with outside people is somewhat limited, what's pretty much the first question you're asked when somebody meets from you, no matter who you are? People always ask, yeah, what do you do? Who do you work for? What's your job? Every employee, again, should be able to attractively describe your company and also talk about how their job contributes to their success, to your company's success. So again, every single person in your organization needs to be prepared to represent your company and to leave others with a good impression of it. Because, tip number 5, everybody sells. Tip number 6, know your sales cycle. So the first thing is, I'll take a brief pause while some of you go out and Google the term sales cycle. I'm just kidding. It's pretty obvious what that is. What's not necessarily so obvious is that understanding your sales cycle is critical to planning your sales strategy, tactics, and even extends to staffing and budget. Ask yourself this question. Is there a difference between selling coffee by the cup and battleships? I think it's pretty obvious. You sell coffee by the cup, that's a very short sales cycle. Somebody walks up, hands you $2, $3, $4, $5, and you hand them a coffee or an iced coffee or whatever it is you're selling. If you're selling battleships, you're not going to talk to one person and get an order for a battleship. So you need to understand, based on what you're selling, what your market is, how often people in that market need it, what is the useful life of the products in that market. You need to understand all those things as part of a larger comprehensive picture of your sales cycle, because this impacts what kind of people you hire as well. If you're in a business that's like a 30, 60, 90-day business where you need to keep the till churning and getting new sales coming in that are not strategic in nature, you need a different kind of person and you need a different kind of budget and a different kind of approach than somebody who's selling longer term investment style, large complicated systems and machines that require custom manufacturing, whatever it is, that have longer sales cycles, cycles that require many more touches of the customer as opposed to very few. You need to know your sales cycle and you need to focus your sales plan on that sales cycle. So tip number 6, know your sales cycle. Tip number 7, network constantly. Do I really need to tell you to do this? Do I really need to tell you how important this is in this day and age? You should know that you should be networking constantly. Everyone you meet is a potential customer or advocate. So let's focus not on should you network, but just some quick tips on what to do when you're networking. Number 1, finding the right groups. If you understand your market, like we talked about in tip number 1, then you should know what are the key industry groups. These may be online and they may be local chapters wherever you live and have your business, but you know what the key industry groups are and that you should join them. Maybe there's a fee for events, they have lunches, they have events after hours, whatever. You need to be there because that's where the movers and shakers in your industry, your best potential customers, are going to be. On the flip side, don't completely neglect the more general business events, local events celebrating the fastest growing businesses or the most successful people under 40, whatever those sort of events are. Go to a few of those every year just to expand the depth and breadth, more importantly, of your network. Have those second and third level touches of people you wouldn't normally get to strictly within your groups where you may be seeing all the usual suspects. The other thing is you need to have a plan when you go to these things. You need to think through in advance, what are the questions that I can be asking that lead to conversations? Questions that aren't answered with a yes or no, but ask the person to describe how or why or what, not just yes or no. And then also, don't be afraid to ask for introductions. If the person you're talking to mentions, oh, I know so and so over there, ask them for an introduction. And you, on the other side, need to be willing to offer introductions as well. Those are the keys, not just to going to networking events, but to successfully navigating the networking event environment. You need to network constantly and you need to do it smartly. Tip number 8, 15 seconds is all you get. There's a quote typically attributed to Albert Einstein, which is actually the wallpaper on my computer. And it says, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Most of the time, you're only going to get 10 to 15 seconds of somebody's attention, especially when you're first meeting them. So you want to have your pitch down cold. It needs to be easy to understand because remember, people are busy. They have a lot on their mind. You need to make it easy on them to understand your business. And the pitch itself is great, and that should be totally polished. You should be able to pop that off, no problem. But you should also be prepared for the logical replies you get to your pitch. How does that work? Who is that for? Who have you sold this to? Who are you talking to? What industries do you find use this product and service? You should have answers to all those questions because the worst thing in the world that can happen is you do get somebody's attention in that 15 seconds and they ask you a question that keeps you completely flat footed and you've lost that great first impression you make. So remember, 15 seconds is all you get. Tip number 9, make it about them. We're all really excited about our companies, about our businesses, about our products and services, about our people. But you have to be careful that you don't spend all your time talking about yourself. The only thing the other person in that conversation cares about is how what you have to offer impacts them. You have to make your communications, your sales pitches, your marketing reach outs, make it about them. Every push communication, push as opposed to pull, push meaning email, social media posts, direct messages, LinkedIn connection requests, all those sorts of things must be about them. Make whatever it is that you're doing relevant to them. The only way you're going to be able to do that successfully is you have to do your homework. If you send out 1,000 generic emails, you're probably not going to get any responses. Maybe one or two, who knows, you might get lucky. But if you want to be strategic about push communications, you need to do your homework on who you're pushing to. Show them that you respect their time and attention by putting something personal in there. Go to their webpage, look at the news section on their webpage, find something that they're bragging about on their news page, and mention that in your communication. Hey, I just saw your story about this. We have a product that might fit in there. Would love to give you a quick chat about it. Make it about them. Tip number 10, be responsive. We just talked about how hard it is to get someone's attention. Once you've got it and you've got them engaged in a dialogue, you've got to respect it. You've got to prove that it is important to you. Why should the customer wait to give you their time or their attention or their money? If they ask you for something, you need to get it to them as fast as possible. You need to ask them for a deadline and beat the deadline. You need to make sure that you have the resources allocated to respond to that customer's request, whether it's information, whether it's a quote, whether it's an order, regardless of what that is, you need to get them what they're expecting and you need to do it within a reasonable time frame and hopefully an impressive time frame. This is your opportunity to show them how much you care about them, how important they are to you. Take that opportunity. Be responsive. Tip number 11, know your buy versus build numbers. This is especially important for technology companies and companies in complex and additive manufacturing. The question you're going to be asked when you sell to companies that can do some of the same things you do, maybe you're trying to be a subcontractor on a larger program for a federal contractor, or you're trying to get your subassembly added to a complex machine. The question you're going to have to ask is why, from the customer, why wouldn't I just do this myself? So you need to know in advance what it costs you to develop this and estimate what it would cost them. If you know that their labor rates are higher than yours and you've already got something built, then you can make a pretty compelling case that it's cheaper for them to buy it from you rather than redeploy resources and build it themselves. You have to factor in what you know about the prospect. You have to factor in the size of their company. If you manage to get it done through, say, a federal grant, or you did it through some other way where you've already recovered all your costs, maybe you have a little room to move on the price. But know your buy versus build numbers and be prepared to talk to the customer about them. Tip number 12, give some away, but know when to ask for an NDA. In this modern time of business, especially in marketing and sales, it's critical that you understand you're going to have to give something away. This is a very sound sales and marketing tactic. This can take the form of publishing white papers and other content to build your brand, your awareness, and your credibility. It may be giving samples. It may be offering trials. It may be loaning equipment that you are trying to sell. Whatever it is, people now expect to get something for nothing a great deal of the time. And you need to be prepared to do that. Again, it could be as simple as publishing a white paper and sending to your client. Maybe it's sending them a link. Maybe it's giving them something that they can't get on their own. Whatever it is, be prepared to give something away. However, do not lose sight of the importance of your intellectual property. You are going to reach a point where you need to get a non-disclosure agreement or some other sort of agreement to protect your IP. For example, an agreement that says that they can only keep the free sample or they can only keep the loan for a certain period of time. These are very basic business concepts, but you need to understand that they apply to sales as well. So be prepared to give something away, but know when to ask for an NDA and protect your intellectual property. Tip number 13, resist the urge to cut to the bone just to get a sale. This is a tough one because you're going to be presented opportunities where you are asked to pretty significantly reduce your price in order to get somebody in as an early adopter or as somebody who's going to open doors for you once they've vetted your product. And this can happen and it can sometimes be a good thing. However, you have to understand that you could be creating downstream problems for yourself in a number of ways. The first way is it is really hard to charge somebody later for something you're selling for a low price now. Even if you make it crystal clear, hey, I'm actually losing money on this to get you to try it out, it is really hard to get them to pay more later. The other downstream problem that you can have, and this is especially true if you get into government or contracting with very large companies, is they typically ask for something called most favored customer pricing. And if you have cut way down just to move a little product, that can come back to haunt you because you have to disclose that sale to that federal customer and they're going to say, hey, you sold this for X. Why are you not giving me X now? I'm the biggest buyer in the world. I should get the best price. So you have to be really careful about cutting way down to the bone just to get that sale on the books. And if at all possible, resist it. I had a client who had an opportunity to get a sample product into the hands of a very big manufacturer that would have really been a great sale for them. And that manufacturer was trying to get it for a song, as they say. My customer held fast. The manufacturer bought it anyway, and we continued to have a very positive business relationship going forward. It did not long term hurt them. Again, this is a strategic decision you have to make. So when I say resist, I'm not saying don't do it. What I'm saying is really think through how this could impact you in the future. And if you do decide to cut to the bone to get that sale, keep in mind You have a manufactured suggested retail price. You should have one. If you don't, you need to set them. And you need to set them so that they are competitive in the market, but also give you room to discount when you need to. And if you do cut to the bone to get that sale, you decide it's a strategic decision for your business and everybody's going to respect that. Put a name on it, call it an executive discount, call it just call it whatever you want, but put a line item on your proposal, on your quote, on your documents that outline that as some sort of a unique special discount that you've offered, so that nobody can say, oh, your commercial price was X. No, it wasn't. That was a special discount that they got for a very particular reason, and if you don't offer me that exact same reason, Mr. Prospect, you're not going to get that price. So resist the urge to cut to the bone just to get a sale. Tip number 14, do not become overly reliant on one deal or one client. This is a tough one because you don't ever want to turn business down, and I'm not suggesting that you do. What I am saying is that while you want the customer intimacy and trust and steady sales, and when you find that client who can be giving you that great revenue that keeps you going, I'm not saying ever turn down their business. What I'm saying is try to avoid becoming overly reliant on that, because if that goes away, then you're caught flat-footed with no ability to make up that revenue, to make up that profit. So beware of it. Don't ever stop selling. Don't ever stop looking for new clients. Don't ever stop trying to diversify. Work with that client, take care of that client, take as much of their money as they want to give you, but don't become overly reliant on one deal or one client. Tip number 15, no one knows everything. Folks, this one happens all the time, especially in sales. You're always going to run into somebody who knows about some new company, new entrant into the market, a change in some government program or a regulation or some hot new technology which is going to make yours outdated, whatever. You need to understand that you're going to run into these people, and you don't want to try to just bluff your way out of it, because you will get caught every time and look inauthentic. You want to be seen as authentic. If you don't know, just say, wow, I hadn't actually heard of that. Can you give me a reference? Can you get me a link? What can I look that up? And let me get back to you as to, what I think about that. I don't want to just respond off the cuff. That's a very reasonable response. And some of the times what they're saying is going to be real. Other times it's going to be a rumor. It's going to be something they saw on Facebook during their break, whatever. So just address it the way I suggested back there. Don't try to bluff your way out of it. Nobody knows everything. Respect the process. Look it up and then go back with a good answer. No one knows everything. Not even the person across the table from you who thinks that they do. Tip number 16, recurring revenue is the gift that keeps on giving. Let's face it, for a small business, a lot of small businesses, running out of money is the single biggest risk to the long-term success of the business. If you run out of cash and can't pay your people, can't pay your rent, can't pay your creditors, you don't have a business. A sale that's been promised 60 days out doesn't matter if you run out of cash 30 days out. So you need to come up with some ways to get recurring revenue and sort of de-risk the possibility of your company running into dire financial straits. One good way to develop recurring revenue, it's great to get product orders on a regular basis, but consider if there's services you can be offering that will give you that recurring revenue that you can count on, that you can predict, that you can budget against. These can be things like maintenance programs where you're paid every month to have a service member available in case something goes wrong. If nothing goes wrong, that's pure profit. If something goes wrong, maybe it's profitable. Maybe you end up paying a little bit more in terms of replacement parts or whatever. Structure your maintenance plans so that they include parts or don't include parts. Be flexible, figure out what works for your business to keep that recurring revenue come in. You may do what's called a take or pay style contract where the customer pays you X amount per month for some sort of service, and if they don't use it, they don't get that money back. If they use it, great. Offer deals to extend the term. So maybe you give a little bit on price in order to get a 2 or 3 year service agreement or some sort of maintenance plan. And offer options as well. Agree to a price in advance. Hopefully you'll put an auto renew clause into your contract. But whether you do or you don't, have that option pre-priced. And when it comes up to discuss whether they want to have that option or not, you've got that potential recurring revenue sitting right there. So protect yourself with recurring revenue because it is the gift that keeps on giving. Tip number 17, undersell and overdeliver. This was advice given to me by a senior person at one of the companies I worked for many years ago, which I have kept close to my heart ever since. It's no surprise that letting the customer down will likely mean that you don't have that customer. At the very least, your customer relationship will be damaged when you don't live up to what you say. Overselling may get you an order, but if you can't meet that, ultimately, you'll either lose that customer, it'll be the only sale you ever make them. It's just not a good situation. The flip side, however, is a sales tactic and a delivery tactic that lets you keep that customer for a long time. And it relates to some of the other things we talked about before, such as responsiveness. But the concept of undersell and overdeliver is to not brag about your product or not talk about how it's the greatest product in the world. Describe it in positive terms enough to get the sale, and then when they see how awesome it is, they're just going to be even more impressed. And it's the same thing with service. Over deliver the service. That may be in the form of staying extra time and not billing for it, doing more than you agreed to do, as long as it's not going to impact them. There are some cases where you cannot over deliver to, say, for example, a federal customer. But just generally speaking, this is all about exceeding expectations, setting the right expectation, and then beating it. When you do that, you create so much positive traction with the customer that they're going to look to you very favorably. They're going to have a very favorable appearance of you, and they're going to give you more opportunities to exceed their expectations, which is a great situation. So undersell and over deliver, and you'll keep getting those customer calls. Tip number 18, your company is not you, but the corollary to that is you are your company. So there's a couple of things here. The first is that your company is going to have ups and downs. Your company is going to struggle. But that doesn't mean that you as a person are not doing what you need to do to be successful. Every business has ups and downs. There's going to be times where you do a great sales job and you're waiting for the order because it takes the customer a certain amount of time to clear budget, to clear internal processes, to get approvals, whatever. And your company may be struggling financially while you're waiting for those orders to come in. But just because the company is having a problem does not mean that you are a failure. It is not a reflection on you personally. You're on a webinar because you're trying to get better. You're an involved owner of your company. So don't let the company struggles kind of pull you down. And also don't get a big head when your company does well, because that's easy too. The flip side of your company is not you, is that you are your company. So you need to be very careful because you're not big enough to lose customers because you want to put, for example, your political opinions out there or your religious beliefs or whatever. It's fine to have those things. You have your separate social media, but understand that when people are trying to figure out if they want to do business with you, they're going to look at your LinkedIn, they're going to look at your Facebook, they're going to look at your Twitter feed, they're going to look at all of those things to assess the risk to them of doing business with you. So at the very least, you have to be cognizant of what sort of an image am I projecting out in the world. Your company is not you, but you are your company. Tip number 19, hire people that are experts at the things you are not. You're good at some things, but are you good at everything? Of course not. You know what you're good at and you know what you're not good at. And you need to augment yourself and possibly your company with professionals when you need them. Know who you need. Think about if they should be staff or if they should be outsourced. Some of the best advice I ever got many years ago from the managing partner of a company I worked for was that if you were starting a company, you needed to have a good lawyer, a good accountant, and a good insurance person. Think about what those things are. Most people are not experts in any of those domains, but everybody who runs a business needs to have experts in those domains. You may be too small to have a lawyer. Maybe your spouse is a lawyer or an accountant or an insurance person. Maybe you have solutions for that, but understand that you're going to need that. You're going to need to budget for it. And this is not just general, but also specific to sales. With many sales, you need to have an agreement or a contract of some kind. And you need to talk with a lawyer about making sure that you are protected in that contract, that your intellectual property is protected, that your business interests are protected. Same thing with accounting, especially if you're going to do business with the federal government, there are all kinds of accounting rules and practices. What's an allowable cost to roll up into a cost-based contract, for example? How much profit can you take? All of these sorts of things. It's very important to get professional expert advice on these. And as for insurance, in addition to just having things such as when you've got employees who use vehicles to travel to the customer site to make sure that you're protected in case they have an accident, that you have workers' compensation insurance, all these sorts of things, you absolutely must have professional liability insurance to protect your company in case you get upside down with a customer. So have those things in place, have those professionals in place. You should have them already. If you don't, go find them. You have to hire people that are experts at the things you are not. Last tip, tip number 20. Building on tip 19 of hiring people that are experts at the things you are not. Tip number 20, consider a sales consultant. Sales is a profession just like law, accountancy, insurance, engineering, all of these sorts of things. Sales is a profession. Some universities even offer a degree in it. And like any profession, it is critical that you have the right people in place to do it. Maybe that's you, maybe that's somebody on your staff already, but maybe not. Do you need some professional help? You're here to get some tips on selling, and I hope you got some that you can use. I hope you put them into place today and that you start selling more and grow your business. But if things are slow, and if you've identified sales as an area where you're really struggling, then maybe it is time to consider bringing in a professional. There's all sorts of professional sales consultants out there. Talk to a lot, get recommendations. Find out what they offer specifically to small business, what experience they have helping small businesses. But if you need help, the worst thing you can do is not ask for it. So, tip number 20, and admittedly, it is a bit self-serving, giving what my company does, but whether it's me or somebody else, please, if you're struggling with sales, consider a sales consultant. I hope you find some or hopefully all of those tips helpful. I'm truly, truly appreciative that you gave me so much of your time to listen to my thoughts on how you can make your companies more successful selling. I think when you look back over this, there's three themes that come out, and really what's coming out is that sales is the same as every aspect of your business. You have to plan well, you have to prepare thoroughly, and you have to execute excellently. If you do those three things with your sales, then you are going to be successful. If you'd like to talk to me about any of these tips or have a discussion or say hi or drop me a line, please call or click. My information is here on the screen right now. My email is dan.ketchen at technologytap.com. A little intentional branding on my part there with the TAP. But call or click, and I'd love to hear from you. And again, thank you very much for your time and attention. It is valuable to me. Have a great day.